There is something most people over 60 never think to question. Not the fast food, not the sugary drinks, not the processed snacks sitting in a bag on the shelf. What many people never suspect is sitting right there on the cutting board. Washed, chopped, and placed on the dinner plate with complete confidence. It looks like the right choice. It feels like the healthy choice. And for decades, you may have believed it was. But here is what Dr. Michael Hardee wants you to understand. When your kidneys begin to lose their strength, which happens quietly and gradually for millions of people after 60, the rules around food quietly change with them. And some of the vegetables that served your body well for most of your life may now be placing a burden on the very organs that are already struggling to keep up. This is not about fear. This is not about giving up vegetables or making every meal feel like a punishment. This is about understanding your body at this specific stage of life so you can make smarter choices and feel better doing it. Today, Dr. Michael Hardee is going to walk you through 5 vegetables that may be silently stressing your kidneys and 4 gentler alternatives that can protect your kidney health while still making your meals satisfying and enjoyable. But before we get into the list, let's talk about something important. Your kidneys rarely send loud distress signals. They do not knock loudly on your door. What they do instead is whisper, a little more fatigue than usual, slight puffiness in the ankles toward evening, a subtle heaviness in the body that you keep attributing to aging, creatinine levels creeping up in your lab results, an eGFR number your doctor mentions with a slightly more serious expression than last year. These are the quiet signals that many people miss, not because they are not paying attention, but because they never connected those feelings to the food on their plate. So pay close attention, because what you are about to hear may change the way you think about dinner tonight. The first vegetable that deserves a much closer look is spinach. Now, stop for a moment, because if your immediate reaction is disbelief, that is completely understandable. Spinach is everywhere. It is in every green smoothie recipe. It is in every clean eating guide. It is celebrated on health channels, pinned on wellness boards, and blended into the morning routines of people who genuinely believe they are doing the very best thing for their bodies. And for people with healthy, fully functioning kidneys, spinach may indeed be a fine choice. But the conversation shifts dramatically when kidney function is already compromised. Here is why. Spinach is one of the most oxalate-rich vegetables you can put in your body. Oxalates are natural compounds found in many plants, and under normal circumstances, healthy kidneys can process and eliminate them without much trouble. But when kidney function is reduced, those oxalates do not move through the system as smoothly. Instead, they can bind with calcium in the blood and begin forming crystals. Over time, and with repeated daily exposure, those crystals can become kidney stones, or they can contribute to worsening kidney damage that was already underway. Now, here is where the danger quietly multiplies. Think about the difference between sitting down and slowly chewing a small salad with some spinach leaves versus throwing several large handfuls into a blender with fruit juice and drinking the entire thing in under 2 minutes. When you chew food, your body receives natural signals to stop. You feel full. The portion limits itself. But when you blend those same greens into liquid form, you bypass all of those natural breaks. You may consume 3, 4, or even 5 times the amount of oxalates in one sitting without realizing it. And you walk away feeling virtuous because you just drank a green smoothie. Dr. Michael Hardee hears this all the time. Patients come in believing their morning smoothie habit is the best thing they have done for their health. And the lab results tell a different story entirely. If your doctor has ever flagged your kidney function, mentioned elevated creatinine, or discussed kidney stones with you, it is time to look at how much spinach you are actually consuming and how you are consuming it. You do not have to eliminate it completely, but grinding several large handfuls into a daily smoothie is something worth reconsidering. The second vegetable on this list may be even more surprising because it is so deeply woven into everyday cooking that most people never give it a second thought. That vegetable is the potato. Potatoes are comfort food. They are Sunday dinners. They are family tables and warm kitchens. Mashed potatoes, baked potatoes, roasted potatoes, potato soup, sweet potato pie. These foods carry decades of memory, and the idea that they might be quietly stressing your kidneys feels almost wrong to even say out loud. But here is the issue. Potatoes are loaded with potassium, and potassium is where the real conversation around kidney health begins for millions of older adults. In a body with strong, healthy kidneys, potassium is handled efficiently. Your kidneys filter excess potassium from the blood and send it out through urine. The system works the way it is supposed to. But when kidney function declines, that filtering process slows down. The kidneys can no longer clear potassium as effectively, and it begins to accumulate in the bloodstream. When potassium levels in the blood climb too high, the consequences are not minor. High potassium directly affects heart rhythm. It can cause irregular heartbeats, and in severe cases, it becomes a medical emergency. Dr. Michael Hardee uses this image with his patients. Think of your kidneys as the gatekeeper of a very busy door. When that gatekeeper was young and strong, they could manage anything that came through. Hundreds of things at once, no problem. But after years of working non-stop, that gatekeeper moves a little more slowly. And when you send a flood of potassium through the door all at once, in the form of a big bowl of mashed potatoes, a loaded baked potato, or a generous serving of sweet potato casserole, that gatekeeper can no longer keep up the way they once could. Sweet potatoes deserve special mention here because many people assume they are automatically the healthier swap. And in many ways, nutritionally speaking, they are. But when the concern is potassium and kidney function, sweet potatoes carry a similar potassium load. Switching from regular potatoes to sweet potatoes because you think it is gentler on your kidneys may not give you the relief you are hoping for. There is a method some kidney dietitians mention, which involves cutting potatoes into small cubes, soaking them in water for several hours, then boiling them in fresh water. This process can reduce the potassium content to some degree, but it is important to be honest about what this does and does not accomplish. It may lower the potassium load somewhat, but it does not turn potatoes into a food you can pile on your plate without limits. Portion control remains the most important factor. A small, carefully measured serving is very different from a heaping portion just because it has been soaked first. The third vegetable, or more accurately, the form in which it is consumed, is beets. Specifically, beet juice. Beets have been experiencing a major moment in the wellness world. People drink beet juice for blood pressure, for endurance, for energy, for circulation. It shows up in athletic recovery drinks and health food stores and morning routines across the country. And the enthusiasm around beets is not entirely misplaced. They do contain beneficial compounds. The research on beet juice and blood pressure is real. But here is what that enthusiasm tends to overlook. Beets contain both potassium and oxalates. In solid form, eaten as part of a balanced meal in a reasonable portion, they present a manageable situation for most people. But when you juice them, something important changes. Think about eating one medium beet with your lunch. Your stomach fills, you naturally stop. The fiber in the whole beet slows the absorption of everything else in it. Now think about drinking a tall glass of beet juice made from 3 or 4 beets. You consumed multiple times the amount in just a few swallows. No fiber to slow it down, no chewing to give your body time to register what it is receiving. The potassium and oxalates arrive all at once, in a concentrated rush, and your kidneys have to process all of it. For a healthy person, this may not be a significant concern. But for someone with declining kidney function, elevated potassium, or a history of kidney stones, that glass of beet juice that feels so wholesome and intentional may actually be one of the heavier things you hand your kidneys all day. Dr. Michael Hardee is not saying beets are poison. He is saying that for people in a specific health situation, the form in which you consume a food matters just as much as what the food is. Natural does not automatically mean safe for every body in every condition. Your kidneys do not check the label for the word organic before they have to do their job. The fourth item on this list catches people off guard because it does not look like a single vegetable. It looks like sauce. It looks like a family dinner. It looks like something homemade and therefore harmless. This is concentrated tomato products. A fresh tomato sliced onto a plate is one thing. A tiny drizzle of tomato sauce over pasta might seem minor. But what most people do not realize is how dramatically the potassium content changes when tomatoes are cooked down, reduced, and concentrated. Take tomato paste as an example. To make a small amount of tomato paste, a large quantity of tomatoes is cooked for a long time until almost all the water evaporates. What remains is highly concentrated. A single tablespoon of tomato paste contains significantly more potassium than a slice of fresh tomato. Now think about the typical way tomato sauce appears on a dinner plate. Not a tablespoon, not a drizzle, a full ladle over a bowl of pasta, or a rich, slow-cooked sauce used as the base for an entire meal. Ketchup in larger amounts. Tomato soup made from a can with full sodium tomato concentrate. Dr. Michael Hardee's analogy here is simple. Imagine sending one letter to your kidneys. That is a fresh tomato slice. Now imagine stuffing 20 letters into that same envelope at once. That is a bowl of pasta buried under concentrated tomato sauce, eaten 3 or 4 times a week. The good news is that flavor does not have to disappear from your cooking just because you pull back on the tomato. Fresh garlic, onion, basil, oregano, and a wide range of herbs can carry enormous flavor without carrying the potassium load that concentrated tomatoes bring. You can still cook real, satisfying, beautiful food. You simply build the flavor differently. The fifth vegetable on this list is one that you might find on a high-end restaurant menu, celebrated on wellness blogs, and praised in nutritional circles as one of the most beneficial leafy greens available. That vegetable is Swiss chard. The colors are striking, deep green leaves with stems that range from red to orange to gold. It looks vibrant. It looks alive. It looks like exactly what a person serious about their health would choose. And for someone with healthy kidneys, Swiss chard may well be a fine addition to their diet. But for someone dealing with kidney concerns, Swiss chard presents a layered problem. Because unlike some vegetables that carry only one risk, Swiss chard carries two. It is high in potassium and high in oxalates at the same time. Dr. Michael Hardee explains this to patients using a simple image. Picture someone your age carrying one heavy bag on a long walk. Challenging, but manageable. Now put a second equally heavy bag in the other hand. The walk suddenly becomes much harder. The strain compounds. What felt like something you could manage starts to wear on you faster and more deeply than you expected. That is what Swiss chard can quietly do when the kidneys are already under pressure. It is not fast food. It is not junk. There is nothing about it that would trigger suspicion at a dinner table. It shows up looking like the exact right choice. And yet for a body in a specific condition, that combination of potassium plus oxalates can add up to more daily stress on already strained kidneys than you realize. And this is the larger lesson that runs through all 5 of these vegetables. The problem is not that vegetables are harmful. The problem is that your body's circumstances have changed, and some foods that once suited you well no longer fit in the same way. After 60, especially if your kidney function has declined, your potassium is running high, you have had kidney stones, or your doctor is watching your numbers closely, eating as if your body is still 30 is one of the quietest risks people take every single day. Now, after everything you just heard, here is where the conversation gets more encouraging. Because there is no shortage of vegetables that are genuinely good choices for kidney health, and they are not unusual or hard to find. They are not expensive or complicated to cook. They are exactly the kinds of foods that can anchor a satisfying, flavorful, kidney-friendly way of eating. The first of these is cauliflower. Cauliflower does not get the same celebration that some other vegetables do. It is not colorful. It is not dramatic. Nobody is making viral videos about the miracle of cauliflower. But for someone who needs to take the pressure off their kidneys without emptying the joy out of their meals, cauliflower may be one of the most quietly useful vegetables available. The most important feature from a kidney perspective is that cauliflower is significantly lower in potassium than potatoes. And because it has a mild flavor and a texture that responds well to cooking, it works as a practical, everyday substitute for many of the starchy comfort foods that may need to be reduced. Mashed cauliflower is the example Dr. Michael Hardee mentions most often to his patients. Steam or boil it until completely soft, then mash it with a small amount of olive oil, a clove or two of roasted garlic, black pepper, and any salt-free seasoning your doctor approves. The result is warm, soft, and filling. It sits on the plate the way mashed potatoes do. It feels like comfort food because it is. You can also add cauliflower to soup, roast it until it develops a slightly nutty flavor, steam it as a simple side dish, or chop it and stir-fry it with garlic and herbs. It is versatile in a way that makes it easy to use frequently without your meals ever feeling monotonous or restricted. For people over 60 who are afraid that eating for kidney health means eating food that makes every dinner feel like a medical procedure, cauliflower is part of the answer to that fear. The second kidney-friendly vegetable is red bell pepper. There is something immediately appealing about red bell peppers. The color alone makes a plate look more inviting. They have a natural sweetness that requires no additions. They are satisfying to bite into, and they add a brightness to meals that can make the difference between a dinner you look forward to and one you merely tolerate. From a kidney health perspective, red bell peppers are low in both potassium and phosphorus compared to many other vegetables, which makes them a genuinely safe and supportive choice for people managing kidney function. They also contain natural antioxidants that may help support the health of the blood vessels throughout the body, including the tiny, intricate network of vessels inside the kidneys themselves. Healthy blood vessels mean better filtration capacity, and for kidneys that are already working harder than they should be, anything that supports vascular health is worth paying attention to. You can eat red bell peppers raw with a meal, slice them into a simple salad, roast them in the oven until they soften and deepen in flavor, or stir-fry them briefly with garlic and a small amount of olive oil. They add color, crunch, and natural sweetness to almost any dish without bringing a potassium load that your kidneys have to struggle with. And here is something worth sitting with. One of the hardest parts of eating for kidney health is the feeling that food has lost all of its pleasure, that every meal is now just a series of things you cannot have. Red bell peppers push back against that feeling. They make the plate look beautiful, they taste genuinely good, and they do not come at a cost to your kidney health. The third kidney supportive choice is something most kitchens already have: garlic. Garlic is not flashy. It is not expensive. You do not need to order it online or find it at a specialty store. It sits in most kitchens in an ordinary basket or a small ceramic jar, and most people walk past it without giving it any particular thought. But garlic has a specific role to play in kidney-friendly cooking that goes beyond nutrition. It is a flavor anchor. When people reduce sodium to protect their kidneys and their blood pressure, the first thing they often say is that their food has stopped tasting like anything. The richness is gone. The depth is gone. The food feels flat, and they lose the desire to cook and eat well at all. Garlic steps directly into that gap. A few cloves of garlic gently cooked in a small amount of olive oil create an aroma that signals to the brain that something satisfying is coming. Minced garlic stirred into steamed vegetables transforms something plain into something that smells and tastes intentional. A small amount of garlic in a simple broth-based soup gives the entire pot a warmth and depth that makes you feel like you are eating real food, not a medical concession. Beyond its role as a flavor tool, garlic also contains natural compounds that have been studied for their potential influence on blood pressure, inflammation, and cardiovascular health. Given that the kidneys and blood pressure are closely intertwined, supporting heart and vascular health through the foods you choose is never a minor thing. Dr. Michael Hardee does offer one practical note. After you chop or press garlic, allow it to rest for a few minutes before applying heat. This brief window gives the natural compounds in garlic time to activate before cooking changes their structure. It is a small step, but it costs nothing and takes almost no effort. If you take blood thinners or have specific digestive sensitivities, mention your garlic intake to your doctor. Even foods this familiar can interact with certain medications or conditions in ways worth discussing. The fourth and final kidney-friendly vegetable on this list is one that many people overlook entirely. Not because it is hard to find, but because it is so ordinary that it barely registers as a choice worth celebrating. That vegetable is cabbage. Cabbage sits in the produce section at every grocery store. It is inexpensive. It keeps well in the refrigerator. It works in a wide range of preparations, from simple steaming to slow-cooked soups to quick stir-fries to light, refreshing slaws. It is the kind of vegetable that does not announce itself, but shows up reliably every time you need it. For people managing kidney health, cabbage earns its place for a straightforward reason. It is low in potassium and low in phosphorus, which makes it one of the safest everyday vegetables for someone who needs to be thoughtful about those minerals. It adds bulk and texture to meals without adding the mineral load that compromises kidney filtration. Cabbage also belongs to the cruciferous family, which includes broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and kale. Vegetables in this family contain natural plant compounds that have been studied in connection with the body's ability to manage inflammation and oxidative stress, both of which are factors in long-term organ health. But perhaps more practically, cabbage is simply easy to use. You can add it to a simple vegetable soup and it thickens the broth naturally. You can stir-fry shredded cabbage with garlic and a splash of low-sodium broth for a satisfying side dish in under 10 minutes. You can slice it thinly and dress it with a little olive oil, lemon juice, and fresh herbs for something that feels fresh and alive on the plate. You can even use large cabbage leaves as wraps for fillings that would otherwise sit in something heavier. Dr. Michael Hardee calls cabbage the reliable friend in the kitchen. Not the one that shows up with grand promises and dramatic claims. The one that simply shows up, does its job, and makes everything around it a little easier. And at this stage of life, that kind of dependability matters more than it ever did before. So here is where everything lands. The 5 vegetables that deserve careful attention when kidney function is a concern are spinach, especially in smoothie or juice form; potatoes and sweet potatoes because of their significant potassium content; beet juice, which concentrates both potassium and oxalates in a way that the whole vegetable does not; concentrated tomato products, including tomato sauce, paste, and ketchup in larger quantities; and Swiss chard, which carries both high potassium and high oxalate content at the same time. And the 4 gentler, kidney-supportive choices that can anchor a satisfying, flavorful diet are cauliflower, which offers real comfort in place of starchy, high-potassium vegetables; red bell peppers, which bring color, crunch, natural sweetness, and antioxidant support; garlic, which restores flavor and depth to meals without salt and supports blood vessel and cardiovascular health; and cabbage, which is low in the minerals that stress the kidneys and easy to use in almost any kind of cooking. But here is the most important thing Dr. Michael Hardee wants to leave you with. None of this is about fear. None of this is about stripping the pleasure from your table or making you feel like your body has become a problem to be managed rather than a life to be lived. What this is about is understanding that after 60, and especially after years of quietly declining kidney function, the same information that once served you well may no longer apply in the same way. The body changes, the rules around food shift with it, and the people who thrive in the years ahead are the ones who are willing to ask better questions about what they put on their plates. Not just is this food healthy, but is this food right for my kidneys, at this stage, in this body, with these specific lab numbers and this specific health history? That shift in the question you ask is where everything begins to change. If you have been diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, if your doctor has mentioned elevated potassium or declining eGFR, if you have a history of kidney stones, if you are managing blood pressure or diabetes, please speak with your doctor or a renal dietitian before making significant changes to your diet. This information is a starting point, not a prescription. Your individual situation deserves individual guidance. But the first step, the one you can take right now, is simply this. The next time you plan a meal, add one gentle question to the process. Not just what sounds good, but what is kind to my kidneys today. A smaller portion of potatoes instead of a full plate. Cauliflower mash in place of the mashed potatoes you have always made. Red bell peppers instead of a high-salt, high-potassium side dish. A little more garlic and a little less concentrated sauce. Cabbage in the soup instead of a high oxalate green. These changes are not dramatic. They do not require an entire overhaul of your kitchen or your cooking identity. But small choices, made repeatedly, consistently, and with awareness, are exactly how people take real care of organs that have been working on their behalf for 60 years or more. Your kidneys do not need you to be afraid. They need you to pay attention. And that attention, applied gently and steadily over time, is one of the most powerful things you can offer the body that carries you every single day.